On Sunday, Ukrainian Prime Minister Yatsenyuk resigned, just 4 days after the Dutch voted against Ukraine joining the European Union. Taken together, these two events are clear signals that the US-backed coup in Ukraine has not given that country freedom and democracy. They also suggest a deeper dissatisfaction among Europeans over Washington's addiction to interventionism. According to US and EU governments, and repeated without question by the mainstream media, the Ukrainian people stood up on their own in 2014 to throw off the chains of a corrupt government in the back pocket of Moscow and finally plant themselves in the pro-West camp. According to these people, US government personnel who handed out cookies and even took the stage in Kiev to urge the people to overthrow their government had nothing at all to do with the coup. When Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland was videotaped bragging about how the US government spent $5 billion to promote democracy in Ukraine, it had nothing to do with the overthrow of the Yanukovych government. When Nuland was recorded telling the US ambassador in Kiev that Yatsenyuk is the US choice for Prime Minister, it was not US interference in the internal affairs of Ukraine. In fact, the neocons still consider it a conspiracy theory to suggest the US had anything to do with the overthrow. I have no doubt that the previous government was corrupt. Corruption is the stock in trade of governments. But according to Transparency International, corruption in the Ukrainian government is about the same after the US-backed coup as it was before. So the intervention failed to improve anything. And now the US-installed government is falling apart. Is a Ukrainian chaos to be considered a Washington success story? This brings us back to the Dutch vote. The overwhelming rejection of the EU plan for Ukrainian membership demonstrates the deep level of frustration and anger in Europe over EU leadership following Washington's interventionist foreign policy at the expense of European security and prosperity. The other EU member countries did not even dare hold popular referenda on the matter. Their parliaments rubber-stamped the agreement. Brussels backs US bombing in the Middle East and hundreds of thousands of refugees produced by the bombing overwhelm Europe. The people are told they must be taxed even more to pay for the victims of Washington's foreign policy. Brussels backs US regime change plans for Ukraine and EU citizens are told they must bear the burden of bringing an economic basket case up to European standards. How much would it cost EU citizens to bring in Ukraine as a member? No one dares mention it. But Europeans are rightly angry with their leaders blindly following Washington and then leaving them holding the bag. The anger is rising and there is no telling where it will end. In June, the United Kingdom will vote on whether to exit the European Union. The campaign for an exit is broad-based, bringing in conservatives, populists, and progressives. Regardless of the outcome, the vote should be considered very important. Europeans are tired of their unelected leaders in Brussels pushing them around and destroying their financial and personal security by following Washington's foolish interventionism. No one can call any of these recent interventions a success and the Europeans know it. One way or the other, the US empire is coming to an end. Either the money will go or the allies will go, but it cannot be sustained. The sooner the American people demand an end to these foolish policies the better.